Good morning, Boker Tov from a beautiful Israel. Of course, still a very traumatized Israel, but it's still a beautiful Israel. And it's always beautiful to be in a place that's spreading light as opposed to the places where they're supporting a death cult. And it's interesting because despite the horrors that are going on here and the horrors that are, the evidence of which is being exposed and discovered on a daily basis, sadly, it's an interesting thing is that there's no other place I'd rather be right now. I know some people are very concerned about what's going on in Israel, and for the most part the country is quiet. For the most part there's a war going on. There's absolute savagery that has been unleashed on Israel and its citizens, but life is going on. Things are for sure quiet. As I've mentioned before, it's got a strange resemblance to COVID lockdown in that things are generally quiet. Schools are going back to Zoom schools. The shops are quieter than usual. The playgrounds are emptier than usual. But life goes on. It has to. As I'm talking to you now, I can hear jets going overhead. I'm not sure you can hear them on the video. And of course, those are people that are fighting a death cult. NATO has now seen what's going on. There are ambassadors and there are attachés visiting the region that are seeing firsthand the atrocities that have been committed. And those who want to support the other side, by all means do it. You can keep your eyes closed. Either you're going to believe what's happened is not a tragedy out of your ignorance. Alternatively, you believe in what you want to believe out of pure anti-Semitism and hatred. But we as a country and we as a nation and we as the Jewish and civilized world, we need to do what we need to do. As I mentioned, the country is coming together in a most amazing way. There's a lot of love, a lot of support. People are volunteering in any way they can. So some of the things that, we know there's a war, we know there's a tragedy, but just some of the little things which maybe people aren't aware of that's going on. So for example, there are soldiers that have been called up whose pets need to be looked after. So shelters are opening up to look after pets for free. People are opening up their homes to look after pets. There are soldiers that had to drive down south because they've been called up, and they drove down as quick as they could and they've left their cars down south. So now volunteers are going down to get their cars to bring it back to the rest of the family who need to make use of those cars. So it's just like these day-to-day life things that need to go on that people maybe aren't aware of. We know that armies are being mobilized. We know that food's being collected. But there are these little things happening. On a more serious note, people have opened up their homes because there are communities that have been ravaged down south. People don't have homes, those that have survived. So people have opened up their homes, taking in survivors and showing obviously as much love and support as we can. This absolutely is turning out to be one of those life events that you're never going to forget, no matter who we are. We remember things like, as for me growing up, there were these things that happened that you don't forget. We all know them. There's ones that are beautiful, like the elections in 1994 in South Africa. Some darker days like Chris Hardy getting assassinated. Obviously things like 9/11. But sadly, this is one of those tragedies that are going to be etched in all our memories forever. We'll know, where were you when this happened? And we'll know where we were. We all saw this unfold and gradually got worse as the days go by, and it's unfortunately still bad. But it's a defining event both for us as individuals in terms of our own psyche, but as a world. The world will not be the same after this. And I'm saying that in a good way, because it's becoming clearer, which we live in a world where there's no lines being drawn. It's as if anything goes. We know that. We know that politically, we know that socially. We live in a very crazy world where things are no longer black and white. Everything is blurred, as we know. And even when it comes to this kind of evil, it gets justified, it gets swept under the carpet. People are very happy to give excuses. But this is a defining event for the world in that we can clearly see that, yes, there are things in this world that are black and white. There are many grey areas. Things are very nuanced. That's part of life. That's the tragedy, not the tragedy, that's the beauty of life, is that things are nuanced and that you have to, make choices and often difficult choices. And you've got to choose between slightly different things, I mean, just chocolate itself is a beautiful thing that is on a spectrum where you can choose how dark or how creamy you like it. But at times in life, you've got to choose between right and wrong. And this is one of those times where it's very clear who's on the side of spreading light and who's on the side of absolute darkness. Now, there's obviously a big campaign globally in all media, all forms of media, for people to start putting together a narrative for what they support and which side they're on. And there's a point which we've got to, which I think pro-Israel and Israeli government propaganda isn't even necessary. People can go see what Hamas themselves are saying, and they can go see what Hamas themselves are posting, and the images and the joy with which they killed innocent people. You don't need pro-Israel propaganda to tell the world what's going on. They can see clearly from Hamas what's going on, and they can make their choices. We know what our choices are, and as I say, thank God we know that we're on the right side, and we will be victorious.